Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Pondering the Process, where we embark on a journey of discovery with some of the most creative minds in the community and explore the making of their latest projects. Today, we're talking with Grace about a piece that shows the wide spectrum of emotions we go through as humans. So, how are you doing, Grace? Thank you for joining us.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, happy to. Once more, thank you for taking the time. When I looked at your piece titled Emotions, I was really blown away. I really like how you honed in on multiple human emotions and just let it all out, basically just put it out there, showing the different contrasts that the human face can go through. So yeah, it's a pretty good piece. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
So like the title suggests, right? The painting obviously has a lot of emotions represented in it. So what inspired you to create a piece with such a wide range of emotions and facial expressions?
Yeah, I guess what inspired me is, humans are just really inspiring as a whole to me. But what's interesting is, although we all experience these different types of emotions, anything from happiness to sadness, the positive and negative emotions as we label them, a lot of people are embarrassed to have certain emotions, and only certain emotions are glorified. And so I just felt really inspired to create a piece that shows all the different array of emotions that we go through and that we all actually experience those. And I think people can feel alone or isolated when they think, oh, I'm the only one who gets really angry, or I'm the only one who experiences immense grief. But when we remember that actually these emotions are experienced by all humans, it can make us feel a little more connected and less lonely. So yeah, I was just inspired by the humanness in us all.
That's pretty amazing. So you just wanted to make sure that people know that expressing themselves in different emotions is okay.
Yeah, we're human and we have to remember that. I think it's important not to feel alone in that, because when you feel alone, you feel more disconnected from people and you're more willing to harm yourself or people around you. So yeah, I just think it was a piece that was like, look, we all feel these things and it's okay. There's obviously the happy emotions in there too. I have love and joy and gratitude, but I thought it was important to have the opposing things that people don't glorify, because we often feel shame around them, but they're also important because without them we can't realize how wonderful joy or gratitude and love are.
I see. That sounds great. So based on that, right, how did you go around selecting what emotions or what expressions to depict in the painting?
Yeah, I actually browsed a lot of references for a good amount of time because I wanted ones to show the emotions strongly and really convey that when you see it, you know what that emotion is. And like the grief one is really painful. I think that was the one I first started working on developing. And I remember my husband, he told me he didn't like the painting I was working on because it made him feel sad seeing this woman in so much grief. And I was like, oh, good. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to provoke the emotion when you look at it. So yeah, I spent some time looking at references that would really provoke those feelings when you looked at them.
I see. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize that him saying that was actually going to make you happy in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to portray.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So one thing I didn't notice when I first looked at the picture though was the hidden figure that's depicting a scream, right?
Yeah.
Like, what emotion is that? And could you tell us more about why you depicted it in that way? Like, it's not too obvious per se, unless you actually browse around.
Yeah, it's funny because that's the controversial piece I found in my painting, that people are almost like confused about it, which is interesting because that one is anger. And I almost went with a different reference that is really in your face. Like all the other ones, more developed and less shadowy looking. But for whatever reason, I was really drawn to that instead. And I don't know if it's because anger is almost kind of like that, where you can be consumed by anger and it can drown you out. And sometimes it's a hidden emotion that people don't even know you're struggling with. I mean, other times, obviously, it's very obvious that some people are angry. But I think that anger is kind of a consuming emotion. And so perhaps that's why I was drawn to the more shadowy figure. But for whatever reason, I was. And even when I chose it, in the back of my head, I knew that it could be the one figure that people are like, why did you do that? Why didn't you develop it like the other ones? And so that was in the back of my head, and I almost changed it for that reason. But I was like, no, this is what I feel drawn to. And ultimately, when I'm painting, I want to go with what feels most in the flow for me and what I'm most drawn to. And I guess the one good thing is it's created a topic that people talk about, and they're confused by it.
Yeah.
Whether that's good or bad, I'm not sure.
Honestly, it's pretty good. Plus, I feel like it does fit the theme of anger in the sense where I feel like anger is one of the emotions that people have to hide a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like just in your day to day, you go to work, someone makes you angry, you can't really show it, right? You go home, someone makes you angry. Like, I feel like that's the emotion that human beings do put in the shadow the most. So
yeah, it's the most shamed emotion. Like if you're experiencing grief or disappointment, which I have in there, like the more sad type emotions, people will feel for you. But if you're angry, people shame you and they want you to shut that down. So yeah, it is one you have to hide more.
Yeah. So could you walk us through the creative process for this piece? Like how did you approach this piece with heavy emphasis on emotions?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my paintings when they start out are like actually so basic and sloppy. I've seen some artists, they will do this really detailed sketch before they start painting over it. And my sketch was a bunch of circles just to get where I want each human to be, and how they're going to fit onto the canvas. But they started out as the circles. I did develop the sketch more once I had the circles down, but even before I put it on canvas, I just had a piece of paper and I drew what looked like kind of bulky stick figures. So my starting points tend to start out like very basic, and then I start developing them to be more refined in the sketch and obviously laying down paint. But yeah, I guess as far as technique, I'm still developing a lot of skill. I actually haven't been pursuing art for quite a few years. I mean, I dabbled in it when I was little, but this is the first year that I've seriously been pursuing it. So I'm also aware that I have so much more work to do on the skill level. So this piece that I did, I spent the last year taking some classes when I could. I was traveling a lot in 2022, and I took classes as I could, and I felt like those classes helped develop me to the point where I could try to pursue a painting on my own like this piece. And so this piece was the first one that I decided to try to do on my own. So it wasn't like, oh, I know all these skillful things that I'm doing. It was more like experimenting for me and like, okay, let's see how this goes. And although I'm sure every artist can develop their skill, I was pleasantly surprised with how it went because I wasn't expecting it to come out the way that it did. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out great. It's a pretty good piece. So you just mentioned how experimenting was key because you're still trying to get your skills up to a level where you're more confident in yourself as an artist. But based on that, how does the achromatic color scheme fit into that experimentation? Were you always going to use an achromatic color scheme?
I didn't want there to be color because I wanted it to be so focused on the emotions and what they made you feel. And sometimes color is distracting in itself, or you can get caught up in the beautiful colors of the painting. And so I wanted it to just be black and white and see what they made people feel.
I see. So it was more of to get the audience to concentrate on the theme of the painting.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you mentioned earlier how your husband said he felt sad when he saw the beginning of the painting, and his opinion has probably changed since you finished it. So I guess what kind of response overall have you received from people when they see this?
Yeah, his response has changed. He finally has warmed up to the painting. Even when it was done at first, he was like, I don't know if I want this in our house, because there were just so many intense emotions to him. But he's warmed up to it and he says he likes it now. But yeah, a lot of people have really gravitated towards that piece out of my other ones. It's interesting what people like, but I guess I haven't had specific words like, oh, that makes me feel sad or whatever, but you know, people are just kind of mesmerized by it and seem to like to sit and study it. Of course, I hear much more of what people actually think if they happen to see the piece in person versus like online, because they'll actually start going into detail. But yeah, I found that a lot of people will sit and study the piece versus other pieces I've done. They'll just be like, oh, that's pretty. Where this piece, it's interesting to them and they're a little more captivated.
I see. It's probably because you can relate to this, right? Like there's probably a time in everyone's life when they've gone through all of these emotions.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. People look at this and it probably brings up memories, right? Like when I first looked at it, it brought up some memories, right? The first expression I saw was the happy expression, and it brought up some happy memories. And then I also tried to make out what expression was what. So what I got from it was starting from left, right, top, bottom. So sadness, happiness, grief, gratitude, love, and anger. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Almost. I know the sad ones are like a little similar because they're both sad emotions. So the first one, the very far left, is grief, and then joy, and then there's disappointment, and next to her with the lady with her hand over her mouth is gratitude, and then below is anger, and then to the left of anger is love.
Yeah. Okay. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, it's definitely something that people will relate to. So I would be surprised if anyone looked at it and was not fixated in a sense on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting to even see which emotion people are most drawn to out of all the ones. My favorite is joy. I love her expression, and obviously joy is a wonderful emotion. But I really enjoyed painting that expression specifically.
Yeah, that was the first one I saw as well. It really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's good for us if that's the one we are relating the most with, because
right,
because people are going through it, if I'm being honest. So
yeah, or I found that, some people are resistant to certain emotions. I think that's why my husband didn't like the emotion grief, because he doesn't want to feel that emotion, so he's resistant to even looking at it in the painting. So it's interesting to see the ones that people don't like. And I've had somebody not really like the anger one. And so it's just interesting to see how people respond to these emotions as they're looking at them.
That is true. That is true. So how have your own emotional experiences influenced your art?
Oh, yeah. I think that sometimes when we go through, obviously we all love going through good times, but when we go through bad times, that we are so resistant to them. But for artists, I think they can influence your art in such a beautiful way. But what I found is you have to be willing to be vulnerable in your paintings, meaning just like musical artists who write lyrics out about things they experienced or have gone through. And maybe somebody listens to that song and they don't know detail for detail of what the singer went through. It can be the same though for painters. that you're painting from your heart and maybe some things that you've gone through, and it could maybe feel vulnerable. Even though you know people aren't going to know all the details of what you went through, you're still putting on canvas some experience that feels vulnerable to you. But I think when you're willing to be vulnerable, you create better art versus being hidden and maybe just making what you think other people want to see, you know, that kind of stuff.
I see. So then that brings me to my next question, which is, what was the most challenging part of creating this?
Mainly was skill-wise. For vulnerability, because we were just talking about that, I didn't feel insecure. Like, I've obviously experienced all those emotions, so there wasn't like this insecurity or wanting to be hidden, but it more came down to skill-wise. And when I was painting love and I was painting disappointment, so the girl with the tear going down her face, and then obviously the couple, I found that I had to repaint those people over and over. I, for whatever reason, was not getting the expressions right, and I had to keep repainting them, so it was just like a little bit of lack of skill there. But otherwise, the rest of it seemed to flow out pretty nicely.
I see. And how long did this piece take you?
That one took, I think it was just around 30 hours.
I see. I mean, I think your skill level is pretty good if this only took you 30 hours. I'm just saying.
Thanks.
Right. Well, that's pretty interesting. So earlier you mentioned how you had to go travel a bit, start learning, taking classes. So on that journey, were there any particular artists or movements that helped influence your decision to make this piece?
I mean, the piece itself was just kind of inspired out of my soul, but my cousin, who's one of my best friends from childhood, she studied under an amazing artist. I believe that he helped create the animation for Polar Express.
Oh, wow.
And so she got to study under him, and she's a fantastic artist. And so she holds classes now too. Her name's Mercy Marshall. So she holds classes not too far from where I live, but because I was traveling for work out of state, you know, that would interrupt how often I could go to her classes. But she was the main one that I was studying under, and she just really helped me develop the skill to bring to life kind of what I'm seeing or, you know, wanting to create, where before I was taking her classes, I just always seemed to struggle, and the paintings or drawings that I wanted to make didn't really turn out quite like I was hoping they would, you know. So that's when I was like, you know what, I'm going to dedicate a year to just taking these classes, and hopefully after 1 year I can start to try to have fun with the ideas in my head. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that went.
Yeah, we here are definitely looking forward to your growth as an artist. You're already off to a great start. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's all the questions I have regarding the piece. If you have anything else you would like to add, feel free.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here and showing some of my work. I am definitely at my starting point, so it feels nice to have a little bit of recognition, but I'm hoping to become better and better, just like all artists.
Great. Yes, we believe that you will be better and better. It's a huge step you took to pursue it full time. So, like I said, we're behind you 100%.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I would like to talk about is the Udocreatives app. It's an app that's for showcasing creativity, which is like a tiny summary of what it does. But let me expand into more features about the app, right? So you can get the clue of what it's about. So what we're trying to create here is a creative community hub, basically, right? So you go on the app, you immediately get access to the work of numerous artists who have signed up and already put their work on there. So you have a lot of inspiration to start with. We also have something called the discussion section, where it's a forum, right? You can just ask questions about art. How do I sell my art? How do I make myself better at this technique, right? And you have tons of people there already waiting to respond to you. And then we also have this thing called glances, which is something that we are particularly happy about. So glances is a feature where you put your progress work in your story and it stays there for 7 days, right? So one thing we've noticed about a lot of other social media is there's always this pressure to keep on posting, right? Like you almost have to become an influencer to get seen.
Yeah.
Right? And for people who are in the creative space, you already have to spend a lot of time creating, right? You shouldn't have to spend so much time trying to be an influencer, trying to create content that just caters to the algorithm just to be seen, right? So we've developed the glances feature, which is a 7-day story. So it's like you put your progress videos on there. It stays on there for 7 days. Whoever subscribed to you, they know that, okay, hey, this is what Grace has been working on for the past 7 days. And obviously, if you have new updates, you can keep on adding them, right? But it's basically just a way for people to follow your journey, but without your feed being clustered up with progress videos. Because sometimes if you go on a lot of creative pages on Instagram, what you tend to see is there's a lot of process videos, and sometimes the audience might find it difficult to find out where the final painting or the final piece is, right? So we've separated that basically, right? So in your post section, you put your final piece. Well, that's what we're trying to get to. And in your glances section, you put videos of your progress, right? So everyone can just keep on following your journey. And then when the piece is finished, you can get in your post. Right now, we haven't really set up a way to archive the glances, but we do want to set up a way to archive glances so that you can tell the entire story of a piece and show that, but that's in the future.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, so we also do something called the spotlight feature, which is another thing that we're really proud of. So basically what happens is if you open the spotlight page, you see tons of posts from multiple artists, creatives that have signed up to the platform and put their work on there, right? It's a very nice place to get inspiration, and it's not algorithm based in the sense where if you like a certain kind of post, then we're just going to keep on feeding you that. The expectation is that everyone on this app is interested in creativity in some way or the other, or is trying to find inspiration as well. So we make it so randomized that when you open the spotlight page, there's no targeted set of posts for you. It's more like, here is a bunch of stuff that people have been doing. Check it out. You might see something unexpected that you like that might actually convince you to work on something similar, right? So it's a great place for inspiration. And every time you refresh the page, it gives you a new set of people to look through, right? You also have glances in the spotlight section too. So there's a glances tab in the spotlight section, which helps for visibility. So even people who don't even subscribe to you on the app, right, they can still subscribe to you from there, right? So the aim is that it doesn't matter how many subscribers you have, right, to be seen. Like we don't focus on giving the bigger platform more people and then forcing people who have less of a platform to basically have to work harder. No, like everyone has the same chance of being seen by galleries, museums, different collaborators, other creatives, people who just admire creativity, right? So we're trying to basically just make a safe space where there's no pressure. You don't have the pressure to post all the time, right? Okay. So if you don't post on your feed section for a while, we don't like shadow ban you or all those things, right? Even if you don't join discussions, because you might just want to check out what people are saying, but you might not want to necessarily start one. We don't punish people for not posting or not using the app every day, right? It's supposed to be a tool to help people grow. So we're not going to punish you for not being on it all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. I like the discussion forum too, because it can be so helpful to learn from other artists.
Yes, actually. Plus, we even have a feature where you can go to a post and you can discuss the post right from there. So let's say you put this painting on the app, right? Somebody can go and start a discussion with you right under this painting to ask you questions. They can also direct message you, but obviously if the direct message is not something you like, you can block the person, right? Like,
Sure.
that is in there, right? Or someone can come under this piece and ask, oh, how did you get the eyes to look like that, right? And you can respond to them right from the discussion section of the piece. Or they can just go to the overall discussion section and ask everyone in the creative community, hey, how do I get my eyes to look a certain way, right? So there are different avenues where you can collaborate with people.
Yeah, I like that.
Thanks. And we actually even have just a collaboration feature, which is just a way when you go on someone's profile, you can request to collaborate with them. And then whenever they accept that, then that's the only time that both of you now have access to your emails, right? Because we still want a bit of privacy. If you don't want to share your email, we're not going to show it to everyone. So,
Right.
So with the collaboration feature, it's like, okay, we want to collaborate and we don't force you to have to do everything on the app, right? So once someone has accepted your collaboration, you guys can go and collaborate outside the app as much as you want, right? So we don't force people to have to use the app all the time. It's supposed to be a learning tool, a growth tool. So there's something in there for everyone. For people who are just starting out in their creative journey, right? It's a way for you to just come in and already have tools set up for you to start. Because we know that when people are starting out their creative journey, it gets kind of lonely. Like, not everyone is lucky enough to have their best friend be this artist, right? There's some people that have literally no access. So we're trying to make it that people just come in, have access to all these materials, and they can get started, right? And obviously it's free. Like, we're not charging anyone for that, right? So we're trying to make sure that art is as accessible as possible. So, right? And then for people who are already established, you can go on there, you can find inspiration, because like I said, there's already people that have put multiple pieces of work on there. There's thousands of art right now on there with different styles. So someone who's already made their name in the community can go on there, get inspiration, collaborate with people, give advice to new people, right? Things like that. And then even someone who's not really a creative but just admires can literally just go on the app and scroll and say, okay, what's going on? Like, what are people posting? Right? Sure. What are they discussing about? And then we even have this thing called the events feature. So you can post about an event. Let's say you're having like a sip and paint with your friends. You can literally just add it as an event, put pictures on it and be like, hey guys, this is how the sip and paint went. These are the pieces from that, right? Almost like a gallery from your home.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah, so we're working on a lot.
That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. It sounds like it's already set up to be good and you guys are just going to keep developing it.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Right now, it looks like a social network, but we want it to be more like a tool in that sense, where it's for growth, not for competition or likes or all of that, right? Like, no, we want people to legitimately grow in their creative journey and have access to all of these things that people otherwise wouldn't have access to if they're alone.
Awesome.
Thanks. So I don't know if like there's anything from what I've said that stood out to you, or if there's anything you might want to suggest. But please.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you guys have put a lot of thought into it, and sounds like you're coming up with some cool new features. But yeah, kind of like I mentioned before, I guess the forum where you can ask questions and learn from each other stands out the most to me, because that's what sometimes, you know, I'm curious about different mediums and how to do certain things, and I don't necessarily have, you know, my best friend, I've learned a lot from her, but she mainly works with acrylics, and so there's other types of mediums that I've been curious about working with, but sometimes I don't have somebody to answer my questions. So that stood out the most, that I could probably connect with artists who could be really helpful.
Oh yeah, that's great. Thank you for acknowledging about that. Yeah, so that's what we're all about. It's supposed to be this place where creatives are safe, you know, like there's no pressure on you. Focus on creating, very important, right? So that's what we're going for. So thank you for that. Yeah, so one more thing that we're even trying to do, so aside from the discussion feature, right, because when you ask people questions, you're not 100% sure they're going to respond to you now, which is why we're trying to work on adding tutorials in there on the app. Sure. Right? So let's say you go in and you ask someone, hey, can you tell me how you painted the lips in this picture? and maybe for some reason the person hasn't seen the message, because like we said, right, we don't really try to pressure people into being on the app as much, so maybe the person hasn't seen the message. The aim is that you also be able to go on the tutorial feature and see some example that will nudge you in the right direction.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Right, so the tutorial feature doesn't exist yet. We're working on that, but we think it's going to be big when it
Yeah,
comes
it sounds like a good feature.
Yeah, and like I said, everything is going to be free, so we don't want people to have to pay for all of that, right?
Awesome, it sounds great.
All right, thanks, Grace. That's all I have to say. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us about your piece titled Emotions. Like I said, great piece. Really love it. And for someone who's just started out, you did amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks again for having me on here too.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'll let you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again.
Yeah,
right.
thanks too.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.